Welcome back to Lost Legacies, a Hidden City Book Company production. I'm Matt.
And I'm Sam.
It's been a while. Sam, do you feel rested?
Yeah, super energetic. I stretched. I'm good.
So
Good
did
to go.
I. But you know what? If we had recorded this yesterday, it would be the total opposite. It would be like,
Oh yeah.
welcome back, guys.
Yeah, I'd be like, hey, how's it going? One night's rest is all it takes.
Hey, that's all it takes, man. Sorry, everyone, that we were gone for a while. I don't know if you follow us on Twitter, but we did announce that we did, in fact, take a break after all. If you listened to the last episode or two, you would remember that we were planning to take like a month break, but we couldn't just because of Sam's filming schedule. So we ended up pausing, then having to finish season 4 of Lost, and then we were going to keep going since we already paused, but not. We just ended up pausing together because even though that first pause there was no content, like we were working, we were doing other stuff, so we really needed that break, and like,
Yeah.
it feels good. So now we're back, and you know what? I feel like it's been several weeks since we've actually talked about anything. So we got some catching up to do. I think the most recent news we need to discuss is the world's changed in the last month. We're now living in a world with a new Superman and Lois.
Yep. Yep. Yes, we are.
I have no idea who these people are. The actor looks like Superman, and I read an interview he gave a while back saying how he wants to do a more positive and optimistic Superman, kind of like the way the character originally was. I'm like, okay, I'm in so far. Let's do it. Yeah. What are your thoughts, Sam?
Uh yeah, so I'm like you. I don't know this guy. And really the only person I knew that was in like the run, oh, these are the people that are in the running for Superman and Lois. Out of all those people, the only person I knew was Nicholas Holt.
So did I, and I wasn't really feeling him for
Yeah,
Clark.
yeah, I really wasn't. And it's weird too because apparently he also lost out on Batman back when Robert Pattinson, but when they were before they made the Batman. So it's like
Mhm.
it's really weird.
I want to see his auditions because he's a great actor. I don't see
Yeah.
him in these roles, but like I want to know why or how he's getting so far into these audition processes.
Yeah, that's what I want to know too. Um, and like no tea, no shade to that guy. Like I think he's a good actor.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, like there's something to me that doesn't spell out Superman or
Yeah,
Batman when I look at that guy. Uh, but
agreed. But you know who else is in that exact same boat? Cillian Murphy. He was in the bat suit for Batman Begins. That's how far he made it. I'm like, I
mhm,
can't see that, but like, I'm kind of like he again a fantastic actor. I'm like, what would that
mhm,
have looked like? A
mhm.
Cillian Murphy Batman.
Yeah, that would have been interesting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I'm glad it panned out the way it did.
Mm-hmm.
Um, who Nicholas Holt should be? He should be Lex.
That's my first thought. Yeah, I know the Skarsgård brothers are in like competing for it,
Oh,
but
really?
yeah, who's the one from the Northman?
Peter. No, not Peter. Dang it.
Let's see.
No, not Stellan. Damn it.
I'm just gonna look. How many of them
Eric?
are there?
Is there an Eric? No.
Skarsgård. Okay, you have Stellan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he's the dad, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Did you have Bill, who was it?
Mm-hmm.
He was
Pennywise.
Pennywise.
Yeah.
He's the young one. He's the youngest one, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Who the hell's this guy? Walter Skarsgård. Oh, he's the young. He's 27.
Oh,
Uh,
who the heck is that?
oh, I don't recognize any of these projects. Funhouse, Lords of Chaos, Class Apart. Nothing that I've seen. Okay, but he's a Skarsgård. Okay, let's see who else is there. Well, there's just three of them, but I know there's more. Okay, and then there's also Gustav. Who's this?
Okay,
Oh,
because
I've seen this guy before.
yeah,
Okay, yeah, this he was on Vikings. Okay, there's Gustav.
Alexander. That's his name.
Alexander, that's the guy, yeah.
Alexander. Okay.
Yeah, there's so many.
Gosh.
Alexander. Oh yeah, that's the Northman. And Tarzan.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
he's in Succession. Cool. So I think Alex and Bill are both being considered for Lex.
Interesting.
I know.
Interesting.
I wonder what that family dinner's like. Love you, bro, but I'm gonna get it.
Yeah, that's wild.
I would also be down for Nicholas Holt, but it kind of depends which way they want to go.
Mm-hmm.
Because Nicholas Holt as a bad guy has always been kind of like snivelly, you know?
Mm,
And like, I don't know if I want that kind of Lex, especially after the Jesse Eisenberg one. You know,
yeah.
I like Nicholas Holt and all his other stuff. You know, even though I wasn't a fan of the X-Men movies, I think he did good as Beast, even though he was Hank McCoy for most of it. That didn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
But and I liked him as Nux. You know, in Fury Road.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, cool. But like, I think of him from Skins, and then I think of him from the little bit of the menu that I've seen. Things like that. You know, he has that kind of cowardly villainness to him. You know, he
Mm-hmm.
could play that really well. I haven't really seen him play like cold, calculated, and like stoic kind of villain that I feel like Lex kind of is.
Mm.
You know, I mean, look, honestly, to me, the best Lex is Clancy Brown from the
Mm-hmm.
cartoon. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know. I will say I'm going to talk about this later, but I am kind of rooting for Bill Skarsgård because he was the villain in John Wick 4, which I just watched,
Mm-hmm.
and I like what he did. You know, I feel like he didn't really have a lot. They didn't give him a lot, but what he had, like he ran with it. Like, okay,
Mm.
all right,
Okay.
this is cool. Yeah.
How would he look bold though?
Oh, you see, yeah, that I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. I don't know. I'm looking. Yeah, I'm looking at a picture. I'm like,
I don't know how symmetrical his head is.
maybe, maybe. We'll see.
Who's a good bald guy? Oh, I guess the rumor is that they want Brendan Fraser to play Jonathan Kidd.
Really?
Yeah, I read. Well, it was a rumor on Instagram. I don't know how
Oh,
like accurate that is, but
oh
when I saw
man,
that, I was like, you know what? I would be down for that.
I'm in.
Here's just my thing. It's not
Dang.
going to affect my opinion of the movie, but like, I kind of hope they keep the parents around. That was one of my
Mm,
favorite parts about the cartoon. Like, you got to see Superman with like aging parents as
yeah.
opposed to you losing them young, which that happens in the movie, that happens with Superman and Lois. It's different in the comics, but there's just something about that, like, I don't know, him being an alien orphan. I like him having his parents as he ages, as he gets older. He's a full blown adult, you know? It just
Hmm.
changes the kind of dynamic a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think it also kind of helps reinforce why this dude is so good, you know? Like, because he still has that family support and that anchor. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So yeah. I don't know. That's just what I'm hoping. But yeah. Hmm. Who could play his mom? Brendan Fraser. How old is Brendan Fraser? 50s?
Gotta be. Gotta be.
Okay, well then I want his mom to be played by Rachel Weisz. Well, just she didn't show up for the Mummy 3, but she can show up for Superman Legacy.
He is 54.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
I can see
regardless,
that.
I do have hope, and I'm crossing my fingers. You know, I do like James Gunn, for the most part. So we'll see what happens next.
Yeah.
So What else do we have to talk about, Sam? I know there's a lot of movies to discuss. Is there anything outside of the movie sphere right now that we care about?
Ooh, that we care about. Hmm.
Not a damn thing. Oh, the Dune trailer just came out today. The second trailer.
Yeah.
I liked it,
Yeah.
man. I had mixed feelings over the first one.
Hmm.
Mostly just being bored, and a lot of that came with the visuals.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just like I liked it, I enjoyed it, but I'm like, this isn't something I'm gonna watch over and over, you know.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, like this one looks really cool. I'm really curious and excited to see what happens. I had no idea Christopher Walken was in it.
That was one of the big casting announcements
I guess I
that
just glossed it over. Like,
I guess so. I guess so, yeah. As the Emperor. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
how do you do a Christopher Walken impression? Like all I think
If you
is
don't attract rhythm. Oh, dang it. Hang on. Sorry. Back up, back to my mark. Take two. Take two. Slate. Action. If you walk without rhythm, you won't attract the worm. Ayo.
Paul. Your father was weak.
Your father, he was weak.
That's all I got. That's all I
There you
got before I
go.
embarrass
Yeah.
myself. This is why we don't have a video aspect to the show.
Oh man, no, this would be perfect. This
We're
is
gonna
the
get all
perfect way to do it. Yeah.
those neck beards in the comments. That's not how you do a walk-in impression. This is how you do it, and they just spell it out.
Blocked. That's how I deal with any negative criticism. Blocked.
Yeah.
There you
Yeah, awesome. Looks great.
go. I will say, like, it's interesting because the first one is like roughly the first 400 pages of the book of book one. Uh and yeah, like it really is like, you know, in those, like, in the chunk towards the end that like things really start like getting going and getting going on. Uh so yeah, like it's interesting to me that they just decided to like split the book in half and was like, no, because like really all the exciting stuff is in the second part, you
Mm,
know? And yeah, so I don't like, yeah, I don't know, maybe, maybe that's what they were banking on, like we really
mhm.
want to invest in this world, in this universe, so that we can really go wilder in the
Yeah.
sequel. But I will say, like, even with like, because I'm on board with you, like I was very like visually disappointed, not that like the effects weren't great, but yeah, there's like, it's dynamic in a way that like makes it look so real, but it's not vibrant.
Yeah.
Like you think of space, you think of space operas, and you want to see, not trying to sound, like, I don't know, um simple or anything, but like, but you want it to look bright. You want it
Mhm.
to stand out. It needs to
Mhm.
stand out. It needs to look stellar.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Uh so yeah, like what, like, going into to Dune Part 1 is, yeah, it's a little frustrating because it's like, yeah, very visually dynamic, but like the color palette is just weird.
And
But
I mean, in fairness, it makes sense given the location. It's a
yeah,
sand planet. I get it. But I
yeah.
remember one time you mentioning the scene where Zendaya's character's talking about how beautiful her world is, and we see it like at sunset, and you're like, "Yeah, that's at sunset. What about the rest of the day?" And I was like,
Yeah.
"Exactly." Like, I just wish there had still been more color. Like, this movie looks more black and white than anything. Like,
Hmm.
I really wish like there had been even more orange. Throw some more orange into it. Like, give us an orange kind of sand. It's
Yeah.
sci-fi. You could do whatever you want, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Or, just like make the locales visually distinct,
Hmm.
There's like I know, like, it's, being eroded by, like desert storms and all this, but like, there's if you're pulling from civil, like earth like civilizations that live in the desert, there are still modern day cities that exist in the desert, and they look beautiful. You know, their
Yeah.
architecture is, incredible and majestic
It was,
and
yeah,
vibrant,
it was just
where
very
where are the
bleak,
colors?
and I don't know why. I
Yeah.
kind of get, I understand going with the, who are the bad guys? The Harkins
The
or
Harkonnens.
Harkonnens? I get going bleak with that and very utilitarian. I get that. But I don't understand how or why. Well, I guess technically because they used to live there, right? I don't know. Like I just wanted it to look not even nicer. I just wanted it to look cooler.
Yeah.
Like even it doesn't have to be, but I'm like thinking of Blade Runner. Like that world, like you understand why it is the way it is, and there's so much detail to this. Like the Dune world felt like I see this in so many video games, especially online, where you have your character, right? You make this character, and let's say I don't know how big the screen is you're playing. Let's say it's like a 3-inch character, right, on your screen. But you're walking down this hallway, and the windows are like 2 to 3 times that. And for a video game, that's done because you want to get a lot of players in there at once and have room. But most of the time, it's never fully packed because not everyone on the planet is playing your video game. So what it looks like is this huge overblown world with this tiny little character. So you could say, well, it's this wondrous world, but I'm like, yeah, who made this 15-foot tall window? Like,
Mm.
what's the purpose behind that? Like, look at the stairs. That guy's gonna have to go twice, if not 3 times the distance as a normal person would have to go up the stairs. Like, it's almost as if they designed everything first before adding the people. And
Mm.
that's one of my issues with that design in that first movie. Like everything just looked too big, and there was no real reason why.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we wanted to have the audience feel the solitude. I was like, yeah, okay, but
I think yeah.
it's
I
a
can see what
5 minute run to the restroom. Like, I don't
you
know.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. And like even just like when they're like walking down the hallways, like there's no there's no like visual marker, like
Right.
so it kind of just looks like you're in a corridor,
Mm-hmm.
or sorry, it just kind of looks like you're in a labyrinth.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's the point, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
that's like a metaphor, within the context of the movie, because like it's a labyrinth and it's sort of a trap anyway. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. But all that to say is that upon seeing this new trailer, I am excited to go back to that world,
Mm-hmm.
because it does look like there's going to be some more uh places that are visually distinct. We're going back to the
Yeah.
Harkonnens' home world that has this very like, you mentioned black and white, like it looks black and white. It's a
It
whole
does.
different like,
It just looks colder, it's
yeah.
it's slightly more blue than
Mm-hmm.
Arrakis, and you're like, oh, this
Mm-hmm.
is interesting.
Yeah. And then when we even going back to Arrakis, it looks like, at least like what's going to be the most visually compelling are like the action sequences.
Mm-hmm.
Uh but I think on those two aspects alone, I think this one's going to be good, because even in that duel, and during some of the shots where we see Paul fighting in like the throne room,
Mm-hmm.
it's at sunset. And
Yeah.
like it makes the whole thing feel, you know more dynamic,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah.
oh, ooh, I'm excited. I'm
You,
super excited.
I've been watching a lot of reaction videos to the D&D movie, and it's so just fascinating, man, like to see so many people falling in love with that world. And there wasn't really a lot of world building or anything in that movie,
Hmm.
but it was a fun movie, and visually it looked fantastic. So now there's all these people, they want to know more. They
Yeah.
want to know more about the Forgotten Realms. Well, I don't think I think they mentioned Forgotten Realms somewhere in there, but they want
Yeah,
to
they
know more
mentioned.
about Neverwinter and stuff like that,
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
like, wow. I was watching this one where this guy's just like look, I just love magic. I'm just so blown away and impressed by it. So like as soon as the movie starts, like he's just like, oh, look at that creature. Look at that. He's like, oh man. And still a lot of people don't realize like the differences between like what was actually practical effects and CGI.
Mm-hmm.
But it still worked enough that they don't care. They love it, you know? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, man. Um, that's the kind of feeling I want, you know. Like I had that with that movie. I wanted that with Dune,
Yeah.
and I didn't get it. So who knows? Maybe the second one I will. But that's just that goes for a lot of things because I like Denis Villeneuve. Uh, I loved how vibrant Blade Runner was.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about a dark, bleak, depressing world, but that movie was visually stunning. You
Mm-hmm.
know, if they had done Dune the way the entire sandstorm sequence was, perfect. The way it's
Mm.
dark, black, and orange, was like, dude, that looks so cool.
Mm-hmm.
So he can do it. I think it's just the design and stuff you have to, you know, fit to your story. I
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah. So, you've watched a couple movies. Let's discuss. No
I have.
spoilers. I haven't seen any of them.
Ooh. All right. What do you want me to talk about first?
We'll go most recent first.
Okay. Most recent movie I saw was Asteroid City, Wes
Nice.
Anderson's latest. It's weird because and it doesn't happen with all of them, but for a majority of Wes Anderson's movies, every time I watch one, I come away from it saying, "Yeah, this is my favorite one." And it never fails. Anytime I go back and watch like Royal Tenenbaums or Life Aquatic or Grand
Yeah.
Budapest or Moonrise Kingdom, every time I
Mhm.
finish those movies, I'm always like, yeah, this one's my favorite one. So I can never decide which one's my favorite.
So this one might be your favorite.
This one might be my favorite. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, is what I'm saying. Uh, so I missed the French Dispatch. I haven't seen that one yet.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently a lot of people were saying that like it was good. It was Wes Anderson. It is most Wes Anderson. Um, and and yeah, so when news was coming out about like Asteroid City, people were saying, "Oh no, this is Wes Anderson at his most Wes Anderson." And like the day I was gonna go watch it, like I was just like scrolling through my phone, and like that just seemed to be the topic of discussion everybody was talking about that day. And several people said in almost the exact same words that this is probably his most like inaccessible movie.
Interesting. What's that
And
mean?
I was like, oh, okay. I wonder what that means. I don't know. So then I go watch the movie. So Wes Anderson's been doing this thing with really, hmm, really most of his movies, if not all of them. Even going back to like Rushmore. But like so at the beginning of Rushmore, he starts off the movie with like the curtains,
Mm-hmm.
and we see like like whatever company presents, and then the curtains open, and the movie starts. So and then at the end of the movie, like the curtains close and like it says the end. So like there's a framing device.
Yeah.
And I know that like at least in Rushmore, like that's the it's part of the framing device. Like the Jason Schwartzman is making a play, and like so that's sort of like the through line. And he's like he does it in Royal Tenenbaums where it's like a book, and every like new like act or something is like a new chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Um you even in Grand Budapest, that's probably like the closest one to what he does in Asteroid City, where it's like it starts off where we're visiting the statue of an author. We cut to an interview of the author. Then we cut to the author recounting his experience with the hotel manager. And then the hotel manager's story leads us into the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And occasionally we'll like cut back and like, move back to some of those other characters, but that's how it's presented. It's a story within a story, all
Yeah.
these things. French Dispatch does that, but it's in a way that's like, oh, it makes sense because it's about journalists, so everybody's sort of weaving in and out within the city.
Mm-hmm.
So Asteroid City starts as like this almost Twilight Zone-esque TV show where there's like, here we're in the studio, we have Bryan Cranston, who's our narrator, talking about how this story is completely fictional, but that doesn't mean that there's not some truth within it. And so what it is that Bryan Cranston is presenting this televised adaptation of a stage play about the making of Asteroid City.
Okay.
And so it's like that, like those are the layers, and it keeps going and going until we get to Asteroid City. So really, when you take a step back, everything within the fictional town of Asteroid City is a stage play. And even the way the acts are broken up, it's like we see like, okay, like here's the script page and it says act 1 scenes 1 through 3, and then after we get through those 3 scenes it says act 1 scenes 4 through 6, like stuff like that. It's really
so cool.
It's so cool. It's so cool. So yeah, like if you're not already familiar with Wes Anderson's shtick, this is the worst movie to start off with.
Well, because that was the main complaint I had heard too. They're like, Wes Anderson is getting a little too Wes Anderson for his own good. And I knew about the TV show element and it was adapting a play and all this stuff. But the way you described it, like, dude, like, that's just speaking to the theater kid in me. I'm like, I love this movie
100%,
already. I'm like, 100%. I love it already.
Yeah. So like, wow. Yeah. So I was on board, and I watched it with some theater kids. So I'm like, okay, yeah, like this is great. So yeah, like, but it's interesting because I think the more he goes in, the more he like goes in on like his own pastiche.
Mm-hmm.
And he's even said too, like he doesn't read or he doesn't watch any like parody videos.
Right.
So all this like big TikTok trend of like, oh, a day, like you better not be living in a Wes Anderson movie, like that whole trend. He doesn't watch those.
Mm-hmm.
And any parodies that people have made of his stuff, like he never watches it. But what he kind of does is that like he's just taking the things that he started out doing, like the things that he always loved and tried to put into, like his early movies. He's just doing that on a bigger scale. And he's always presented these movies as kind of like stage plays, even the way they're framed. You know, definitely there are moments, where we get like, oh, we're doing a running scene or a chase sequence or something like that. And then it becomes theatrical, becomes cinematic. But even in those sequences, there are moments where it's like, yeah, this feels like I'm watching a play. And I think that's the point. So really, it's like he's just going all in at this point of being like, yeah, this is a theatrical story. We're telling it theatrically. But it's it's in those moments, and it's within like that sort of context that it feels like I feel like he can sort of get to the point of what he's trying to do quicker.
Right. Yeah.
And like it does kind of suck because I will say that like I feel like there's so many great character actors in this movie and not all of them really get to do a lot. Whereas like you look back at like, oh yeah, Royal Tenenbaums, like you can name like almost everybody in the cast and like you can see their character.
Yeah.
So like there is sort of like a dissonance between those, but like the people that we're supposed to feel connected to in Asteroid City, we really do. And it was such an interesting experience watching all of these people, knowing that this is all within the context of a fake story, like talk about dealing with like this displacement they feel in their own lives. And one of the characters is grieving and can't process that. and there's a literal point where he has to help Scarlett Johansson, who plays an actress,
Mm-hmm.
and she's stuck in the city, and she's like, oh, like, I need somebody to help read lines with me. So Jason Schwartzman starts reading lines, and she's giving him notes. She's saying, like, she just like, no, like, you need to say that better, like, say it quickly, say it with emotion. And he's like, oh, and then he does it, and he, like, his character isn't an actor, and it gets to a point where there's a line that needs to be emotionally resonant, and she's like, do that again, use your grief. He's like, what? Use your grief. I don't have any grief. Yes, you do. Use it. And so it's this weird, almost like meta textual, like, breaking of the fourth wall, like, oh yeah, you forgot that these are stage actors making this play, like, doing this thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it is like, and I will say, like, for me, it was overwhelming a little bit, like, especially when we get to the third act, because I wasn't fully picking up on everything. So when we get to the third act and it's, this climax, and I'm like, oh, okay, we're gonna go with the, sure, we're gonna do this, like, it's great. So I feel like I need to watch it a few more times to really, like, for it to, like, really sink in.
Mm-hmm.
But on the whole, yeah, it's up there with being one of my favorite of Wes's work. I'm on board if he keeps making movies like this. Like, if his new thing is that he's just going to be more of himself
Mm-hmm.
with every movie, I'm on board.
That's cool.
Put me on the next freight train to Asteroid City.
Yeah. That's good. That should be on like the Blu-ray cover. Put me on the next train to Asteroid City. Sam Jimenez, co-host of Lost Legacies. And you see, this is what we should be talking about on YouTube.
Yeah, this could be on YouTube. Yeah.
Have you been on Letterboxd lately?
A little bit.
Let's see. Let me see. Unless there's spoilers, I'll just read your Letterboxd. Let's see.
Actually, this is a good time. Give me 2 seconds. I'll be right back.
Okay, I'm gonna read your Letterboxd here. Sam says, Asteroid City, 2023. Watch this tale of grief and the search for life's meaning with two friends who are leaving the country soon. Waited until they both left the parking lot, then stared at the moon while having an existential crisis. Incredible experience. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Absolutely. I agree. I haven't seen the movie, but I like it. I like his sentiment.
Yeah. How's that for a review?
That was a good one. Okay, next one. Is there any spoilers here? I'm going to talk about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
Oh, there shouldn't be any spoilers in that one, no.
5 stars. Mm-hmm. What I wanted. Web-slinging shenanigans across various dimensions while meeting new spider people. What I got. Part 1 of a thesis on the complexities of grief that manifested unhealthy coping mechanisms, i.e. the formation of a society of traumatized individuals willing to let the cycle of trauma continue for the sake of canon. And it fucking rips. It's a good review.
Thanks.
All this grief, man. There's all this grief.
Hey, man, look, we're living within a pandemic.
Whatever makes these men writers avoid therapy,
hey,
go for it.
What
this is their therapy.
Exactly. Look, what's the title of this show? Lost Legacies. Lost is nothing if not,
it's all about grief, man.
Grappling with familial grief and trauma.
Oh,
yeah, man.
Jeez. Yeah.
Yeah. Writers don't get therapy. Write TV. Write movies.
There you go. Again, quote Sam Jimenez. Writers don't get therapy. Write TV.
Oh God. No, go get therapy. Go get therapy.
No, because then we're not gonna have any good content when the strike is finished.
Well, see, like, okay, like that was kind of the thing that people have been upset about with like Disney lately. Where it's like, oh, we don't have villains anymore because the villains are generational trauma.
Yeah.
And it's like on the one hand, I am with you and I'm more in the loss of Disney villains. I think we should go back to that. I love a good Disney villain.
Yeah.
However, the movies that they keep pointing out with are movies that are made by non-white, non-hetero males,
Mm-hmm.
So it's like those are completely different experiences. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I'm not going to say anything when, Steven Spielberg does another movie about, him grappling with, his relationship with his dad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, freaking Lost, like almost everybody has dad issues,
Yeah, either a
you
dad
know?
issue or mom issue.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But like it's some form of that.
Mm-hmm.
But like some movies like Encanto and Turning Red, they are dealing with emotional trauma and they're dealing it from the female perspective, from
Yeah.
the perspective of daughters and their
Mm-hmm.
mothers, and in Encanto's case, grandmothers. So it's like those are two different lived experiences. And also the nature of grief and trauma is nuanced. It's
Yeah.
not just like I saw a person die. It's like, no, sometimes it can be the expectations of a parent somehow non-verbally were placed onto you
Mm.
your whole life. And
Yeah.
now that you're an adult, how do you grapple with the fact that you're not your parent
Mm-hmm.
and you're doing the same thing to your kid?
Mm-hmm.
That's all of those movies I mentioned. That's Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah.
Like we're in this age where like, yeah, we're still fighting, bad guys and capitalism and all this stuff, but like
Mm-hmm.
that's the core of what we're figuring out now.
The
You
more
know?
diversity we have behind the scenes, the more diverse stories we're getting. That's what
Yeah,
I'm loving. And like, I love me some good villains, but the more realistic side of it is these films where you can't just punch your problems away, all your problems in life are almost never going to be solely on the shoulders of one individual. you
yeah,
know that's the fantasy of it. That's the fantasy, like, oh, we're going to get the strength to overcome and defeat the villain so everything can go back to normal, or
hmm
everything will be okay.
hmm
And that's the fantasy of storytelling. All the other stuff, the generational trauma and things like that, that's more realistic. you
yeah,
know you can't punch it away. You could punch a
yeah.
family member, but you're not going to punch the trauma away.
Whoa,
uh,
but that's a quote right there,
I
Matt Jimenez.
mean, right, like, it's just yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to get too into like the differences between, oh, these films were about women, so it's about these things, and this was written by a man, so it's about this thing. So I don't want to get too far into that, but it is kind of, the writing is on the wall a little bit.
hmm
It's like, when, like what I said, you get more diverse stories when you have diversity behind the scenes. Film has traditionally been a very male generated industry, and we've always had that very um I don't know what you want to call it, but like what I was saying earlier, you can't punch your way through life in reality. It was always this fantasy of the hero's journey. This is the things you need to do to win. That's not the perspective. That's not the female perspective, especially those
hmm
movies you mentioned, and it's like, yeah, that's true,
hmm
man. I don't know. So I get it. I don't think they need to be separate or exclusive. I would love for them to combine. You
hmm
know, I MCU still doing villains, and some of them I like, others I don't.
hmm
You know, I don't know if we talked about it on the pod, but we've talked about it in real life, of how I'm kind of tired of the having the villain who like, I guess, the turn at the end, where they turn or they realize the wrong they've done, or like, that's fine if you do it sparingly, but at the same time, it's like, no, man, you want the bad guy to go down in, I don't know, ball of fire or whatever. You want your
mm
Frolos from the Hunchback of Notre Dame,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or Kortrijk from Avatar, which is one of like the coolest villains. You know,
Mhm.
he's unstoppable. But instead, you spoiler alert for all this stuff. Instead you get like wasn't it Christian Bale and Thor, um,
Mm.
Gore,
Gore.
right? Yeah, it's like I really liked it. I did not like the fact at the end he was the one who saved the day. Like
Mm.
he's the one. Of course, Thor kind of talked him into it and all this stuff, but like it was his decision. I was like, oh man, like it makes sense, but maybe they just could have done it better. I don't know. It felt like, and he learned his lesson.
Mm.
That's what it felt like. I don't know.
Mm.
Yeah. Now, I don't know what about this next movie because I haven't seen this one either.
Oh,
But
I haven't even talked about Spider-Verse.
that's what I'm getting into.
Oh, okay.
Like, yeah, so
Okay.
tell me about that.
Okay.
Educate
Well,
me.
where do I start? Yeah, man. So yeah, it's wild because it's like, we've been living we've been living with superhero movies post Into the Spider-Verse,
Mm-hmm.
which was it's a perfect movie. Into the Spider-Verse is a perfect movie.
Right.
It's if it's not the best, it's easily top 3 best superhero movies of all time, comic book movies of all time,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Um Going in, so like that's already a lot to shoulder with Across the Spider-Verse. Now I will say that Across the Spider-Verse is part 1 of 2, and it
Mm-hmm.
feels like it ends literally with to be continued.
Mm.
So it's like, so it feels a little unfair, to call this like its own movie, especially because
Yeah.
like there really is no third act. It's like there's a big act 1, and
Mm-hmm.
then act 2 literally goes until like the end of the movie. Like it
Interesting.
ends where it's like, oh, now we're getting into act 3. So I'm
Yeah.
very curious what Beyond the Spider-Verse is going to look like, because it might just be act 3 the whole way. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. Uh but yeah, it's interesting, and it's kind of interesting. There was something you said earlier about uh what was like you can't like you can't punch your way through life. Like you can't, put your problems on like one thing
Mm-hmm.
and like try and fix like say like, yeah, if I defeat this one thing, it's gonna fix all of that. Because that's kind of the narrative that is sort of being touted like in Across the Spider-Verse, where
Wow.
it's
I'm
like,
I'm impressed by myself.
wow, yeah, there you go, another quote, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
uh yeah, where it's like, at least from Miles's perspective, it's like, if I can stop this one thing, I can stop it from, like I can fix it all, you know and from his perspective, like, yeah, I think you can. So it's real interesting, like bringing in, like one of the best dynamics from the first movie is you have the different spiders,
Mm-hmm.
and you have them all at different all at different points in their life. We start off the movie with happy-go-lucky, things are going pretty great for me, Peter Parker,
Mm-hmm.
who's been doing this like 12 years. And then later in the movie, we get Peter B, who's been doing it for 2 decades. He's
Mm-hmm.
like, yep, everything sucks. Uh, so yeah, it's cool because this time we get people who are closer to Miles's age.
Mm.
And we kind of get our own little core 4 in this movie. And they're all great. They're all great spiders. I love them. Shout out to Spider Punk because he's maybe the best character in the movie. Um,
Dude, I was so excited when they announced that. Like I
mhm,
saw like the little promo they did or whatever, and I'm like,
mhm.
dude, that is so cool. And it's
Yeah.
Daniel Kaluuya. I was like, oh my god.
Oh yeah, man. He's great. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What a great character. But yeah, it's like, it's crazy because I feel like, especially with superhero movies lately, but sort of more so with like just media in general, it feels like there's a distinct like path that people want these stories to follow. Like
Mm-hmm.
it almost feels like if anything diverges from the path, like it's either wrong or it's transgressive, but it feels weird and I don't
Mhm.
like it. You know,
Yeah.
it's like it's the Wes Anderson thing where it's like, oh, that's not how a movie should be, so I don't like it,
Yeah.
you know? Uh and so it's interesting because like this movie is all about what is called canon events. And it's these things in specifically superheroes' lives and especially in the lives of these spider people that make them who they are. And they are things that cannot be changed. And it reminds me a lot of like the Doctor Who like fixed point in time stuff where it's like
Yeah.
we can't fix this. You know, like this is a thing that happens and it's always going to happen. Uh except if the thing gets stopped, if the thing gets prevented, things are okay, except it could lead to like, you know, because it's a superhero story, multiversal disaster and a universe
Oh
can
crap.
implode on itself. So it's like,
Yeah. It's
so
not a
we
very
want
good
to
design. It's not a very good universal design.
exactly. Which is sort of the thing where it's like, I like this has to be the flaw, you know? And we can
Mhm.
see it from like these older spider people's perspective where it's like we lived with all of this pain. Like we lived with all of these terrible things that happened to us, but they're what made us.
Yeah.
And so you have this whole, you know, and like, and yeah, like there, you know, there are younger people who are also like within that and also, you know, like on that side. But it's this very interesting story of like these older people are telling Miles that this is the way his story has to go
Mm-hmm.
because this is the way of the world because we lived with the pain. We had these terrible events happen and there's nothing, we couldn't stop it. And because we couldn't stop it, it's just fact that terrible things are going to happen and you've got to roll with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so interesting that like almost at the outset our hero, our protagonist is like no, refutes it completely and is like no, that's that's not right.
Yeah.
I don't know everything that's going to happen, but I know that I can do this. Like so it's a very much like youth versus experience sort of thing, but
Mm-hmm.
also like a practical hope versus an experienced nihilism
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
cynicism. You know, where it's like yeah, you have, you know, and even Miles's parents are sort of like, you know, like we put all of this responsibility on us so that you can succeed and you can do your own stuff. And of course, because, you know, he has the secret identity, they just see
Mm-hmm.
him as like, oh, you're floundering that. You're, you know, you're going to lose your shot at being great.
Yeah. I was just listening to this piece on NPR about politics in Japan and how young should you be or how old do you need to be to get into politics, and it's saying that like it's just simple facts is like the younger you are, it's almost impossible to get in because it costs so much money just to get
Mm.
in, you know, just to get your name in the door. And so they're having this big discussion over there right now about that. And and there's the debate of like how old is too old to be in politics. You know, America's going through that right now with Biden. Everyone's considering him running for a second term. You know, he's already 80 or in his 80s already.
Something like that. Yeah.
And you know, so people are, that's on everyone's minds right now. How old is too old to be in office? And of course, there's not going to be like a general line like, oh, well, that's the age. It's really going to come down to the individual.
Mhm.
But that's hard to put into law. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it goes back to the opposite too. Well, how young should you, like, what's the minimum age? And because right now I think it's 30 or 32. You have to be at least 30 or 32 to run for president.
Mm.
Um, which on paper seems fine, but I think that rule also applies to a lot of other political positions. So there's this big uh, youth versus elders kind of conversations and debates and arguments going on right now. And one of the things they were bringing up was, again, we're specifically talking about politicians, like how many of these people are actually doing their job with the goal of 20, 30 years in the future? Who's actually doing things because they care about what happens in the next few decades, opposed to who's doing their jobs just to keep the status quo, just to keep the power where it is now, whether within their own political parties or just trying to keep the world the way it is now because it's working for them, you know? So there's this huge discussions and debates going on about that right now. And I don't know, that's just what kind of brought you kind of reminded me of that, of like the elders who lived through their trauma saying this is just the way it is, you're going to have to do the same. And that's the most horrible way to lead, you know? The whole goal, the older you get, is to train and prepare the younger people. So one, they don't have to go through the same pain and trauma you did. And two, in the hopes that they can be better than you were. That's the only way society works. In politics, American, Japanese, and in Spider-Man.
There you go. You heard it here.
Well, I'm 36 now, so I'm going to have to start training the youngins.
Wait, Matt, are you saying, is this you officially throwing your hat in the ring?
Oh, no. I'm 36. I'm still at least 3 decades away from running for president.
3 decades? Wait.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I'm going to be the young whippersnapper at 66 trying to run for president.
Oh, God.
Oh, man. Awesome. Well, I can't wait to check out Across the Spider-Verse, right? What's the next one called?
Beyond the Spider-Verse.
Ooh, Spider-Man Beyond. I love it. All right, so my turn. I'm just going to kind of fly through these because we've already been recording for a while. I saw Extraction 2. Not bad. I gave it 4 stars. I give that to a lot of movies.
You do?
Yeah, solid. I feel this outing is more generic than the first, but the action was incredible. I enjoyed seeing Hemsworth get to act a little bit, and by doing so, this film was really anchored by some real human moments. That's true. Wow. But once again, I don't know how you say this. Olga Kurlenko, actress, wasted. She does great with what she's given, but she's given almost nothing. I did enjoy the villain this time around more than the first one. However, Extraction 1 gave Hemsworth a rival/adversary that was actually competent enough to challenge him. That was missed here a lot. Lastly, I don't know. I enjoyed the stakes, but the first film had such a desperation to it. It was Tyler Rake alone, no backup, no help, and that made his journey so much more impactful. Yep, that's very true. Dang. Good job, Matt. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think it's a step up from the first film. The action is just amplified. And it's so interesting, too, because one of these Letterboxd guys that I follow wrote that this guy took like the what's the name? Sam Hargreaves, I think, the director. He took the Jim Cameron route with this one and says, you don't need to have a million set pieces. You just have 2 or 3 ones that really stand out. I was like, yeah, like this was, I don't know, it's less than a 2-hour movie. There's really only 3 action sequences, but they're like 20 minutes long each, you know? And like, it's really, really impressive. There's one, it's like a 22-minute one shot, which granted, you can tell it wasn't a real one shot. There's a lot of editing in there, but it looks fantastic. And it was great, man. I'm looking forward to more adventures in the Tyler Rake series. Then, last thing I got to talk about here. John Wick, Chapter 4. I gave it 4.5 stars.
Whoa.
You want to know my review for it?
Yeah.
This is cinema. Period.
What more needs to be said?
That was it. I think I told you, or I think I texted you or whatever, but like after I watched that movie, I'm like, you know what? This film did not need to be 3 hours. but I understand why it was. Same thing with Extraction, man. Like they don't go small. Like each action sequence was like 20 to 25 minutes long. I'm like, oh my God. But it's the action is so damn good. And both this film and Extraction, they know how to tell a story within the action scenes. You know?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just mindless violence and shooting and killing. It's mindless violence, shooting and killing that's telling a story. And I'm all for it. You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's incredible. Thank God they announced that there's going to be a John Wick 5. Although I will say this one felt like the last. Like even because originally they were going to do 4 and 5 back to back, but then with the pandemic and they just the way things were going, the director and Keanu they took all the good ideas from part 5 and shoved them into part 4. So they made this badass 3-hour film, and it's great. I loved it. Keanu is more badass than ever, and I think he talks the less, or at least.
Wow.
Yeah, they even said like they cut like so many lines of dialogue. Keanu did. He's like, it's just cooler if he says less. And there's certain scenes where I'm watching, I'm like, you son of a bitch, you're not going to say anything, are you? You're just going to give that look. You know, they're asking you a question. You're just going to give that look. Yep, there's the look. I'm like, so cool.
You're just going to
cool.
Someone's going to be like waxing poetic over here in the corner, and they're going to look like, so what do you have to say, Mr. Wick? And he's just going to look at him and be like, yeah.
Yeah, he kind of just like looks down to lower left corner. He's like, huh. I'm like, awesome. I loved it, man. I loved the addition of Donnie Yen. Awesome character. And your boy, I can never pronounce his name. What's his name?
Scott Adkins?
No, Scott Adkins is in this film though, and he like steals the show, man. Hiroyuki Sanada. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
He has a cool role.
Yeah. That's good. That makes me happy.
Awesome cast.
He was one of my favorite parts of Bullet Train anyway. So like,
oh yeah, I know. Horribly underused in that one. But yeah. Clancy Brown is in this one. I mean, he's just a presence everywhere, man. So, oh, and again, Bill Skarsgård, he's the bad guy. I loved it. I just had a blast with this. Very, not just this movie, but like the whole franchise really feels like the Odyssey, you know? Whereas Odysseus is trying to get home, it's like John is trying to get home back to a home that doesn't exist anymore, you know?
Oof.
You know, like if he succeeds, then what? You know, that's something we've never really discussed. Like what happens when you kill everyone and you get out of life? You just go back home with your dog? Can you just go back home? He tried it, you know?
Which is why like that's why I love the second one so much, because like that's technically what happens. Like he kills off the bad guy. He gets excommunicated from the assassin world and all that stuff. And what does he do? He takes his dog and he goes home to his burnt down home.
Yeah.
When it's raining and just screams and cries, because it's like, yeah, that's it. There's nothing else. You know, and then everything else is just like he just keeps getting dragged back. So it's like, you said it perfectly. He's trying to get to a home that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
You know, whatever piece there is left for John Wick, like it's nothing. It's that's part of the tragedy.
Yeah, it's so tragic. It's very like Greek Roman god what are they? Not morality tales, but like just myth, like mythological, you know, that's what these characters feel like. And I do low key, I feel like John Wick 2 is the most underrated in the franchise. Everyone kind of skips it.
Hell yeah.
But I think it's the second best. I think the best is 4, and the second is part 2.
Okay. Oh, all right. You've endorsed it. I'm ready. Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, if we're ranking it, I need to watch part 3 again. I've only watched it once, and I feel like it was at the bottom of the list.
It's so weird because it's like there's no bad movie within the John Wick franchise.
Yeah, they're all great.
But really what it comes down to is the storytelling and pacing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think of the three that I've seen, which is the first three, the third one has like the biggest like drop off in like intensity and pacing. Because like after that like 20-minute opening where it's just action, we're like, holy crap. It really just like drags. And there's so many moments where it like, oh, here, okay, now we're in the big action set piece.
Yeah.
Now we're kind of dragging again. And it's like, it's real weird.
It's almost like they kind of forgot what movie they were making. Kind of like The Raid 2. The Raid 2 I have similar feelings about. It's like they almost forgot what genre they're in almost. Like, I don't know. They seem like they tried with John Wick 3, they tried to recapture a lot of part 1. Which part 1 is a very slow movie. Part 2, like when you think about the John Wick franchise, all the really cool standout stuff was really introduced in the second one. And they kind of tried to mix that back in with part 1. But like, I don't know, the pacing was off. But also I'm like, what's the story we're trying to tell here? It was all kind of leading back to one, John Wick's back, which he has been back for 2 movies already. But part 3, it's like he's going back into the life, like officially, you know? And it's like, this kind of seemed inevitable and like, I don't know. It didn't seem like new or fresh. Like, oh, didn't see this coming. You know what I mean? It just seemed kind of expected.
Yeah.
So part 4 is really nice because it really feels like we're wrapping it up. This is it. We're going to see, you know, how this ends. And then they announced part 5 like 2 weeks later. So, but they did announce that there's going to be some time, I think. There's going to be some time taken because they kind of just want to give John Wick some breathing room. So I don't know. Maybe he'll be a little older in the next one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, technically, like all 4 movies took place in like what? Or 2, 3, and 4 take place like within the same month, maybe? Or maybe longer. I don't remember. Part 4, I think there's a little bit of time jump.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, there has to be because Ballerina takes place between 3 and 4. And that's the one that comes out next year.
Ooh.
Yeah.
With the
Ana de Armas.
Ana de Armas.
Like the half Russian ballet dancer, I guess.
I'm in.
She can play Russian. I don't care.
Ballerina assassin set in the world of John Wick with Ana de Armas. I don't need a trailer. Drop the movie now. I will go blindly into the theater and watch it right now.
So will I.
Movies, man.
Movies, dude. I love it. I love the cinema. Well, man, I had fun. It was good.
Me too.
Good talking shop with you here.
Yeah, good catching up.
Okay, so
Next
listeners,
week.
Yeah, this is kind of like a taste of things to come. We've been thinking about it for a while. I think we tried it for a while, but we're going back to the schedule. First episode of the month is not going to be Lost related. We're just going to kind of hang out, catch up on what's going on, stuff like this, talk about what we're doing and what we're watching, which means next week we're going to be back into Lost. Now, you know how we're pretty accurate with watching the episodes of the way they came out, which means next week we're not going to be talking about Lost episode 1, season 5. We're going to be talking about Lost season 5, episodes 1 and 2. That's right. Season 5 started with 2 episodes back to back. So we're going to be talking about episodes 1 and 2. I'm excited. It's going to be wild.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Let's do this.
I'm ready.
Yeah, guys, remember, we're on Instagram or no, we're on Twitter at I forgot how to do all this. Individually, we're separately. We don't have a Lost Legacies social media account. So hit us up at hashtag Lost Legacies. We will find it. And we'll either respond to you or save it for the pod. So, but if you want to find me personally, I'm on Twitter at _Matt Jimenez and on Instagram at Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Reel, that's REEL, Texas Weirdo.
So until next time, get lost.
Get lost.